Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to the CX Podcast R&R with my good self, Richard Knight, and
your even better self, if only want to be, Rhian Huxtable. And I'd like to make a huge welcome today to our guest speaker, Ollie Jackman from Agile Comms. And Ollie will share a little bit about what he does in a second. But did you say what number podcast this is, Rich?
I was about to, but you just carried on talking as per usual. I couldn't get a word in edgeways. It's episode 69 today, so We're nearly on to the 70. This is amazing. I can't believe that we haven't been thrown off all of these platforms by now, but they've let us carry on. But it's the quality of the guests we get on. You see, that's what makes the difference.
Well, and hopefully you'll still make it to 70 then.
Ollie, no pressure.
Well, it was a good go. It was a good go, wasn't it?
So our guests don't know this, but Ollie will know this in a second. Our viewers and our listeners know this. We're very light-hearted. We talk about cider quite a lot on these, Ollie. So if you've got a nice cider that you'd like to recommend at the end of the podcast, we always like to talk about that. But yeah, so introducing Ollie. Ollie's one of my clients down here in Devon and Cornwall, and Ollie is one of my star clients, because he not only does he talk about great client experience, but he also asks for feedback from clients. And Ollie, do you want to just share a little bit about what you do at Agile Comms, a bit about the company, your ethos, that type of stuff?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for having me, gents. It's nice to meet you, Richard, and see you, Rhian. As you say, with my business partner James, we run a small startup telecoms company. So 18 months ago, which will make November 2021, James and I launched our business. And we've both got years and years of telecoms experience behind us, but we launched our business to be a bit different and really customer centric, which is, I think, why Rhian and I get on so well. The telecoms industry, like quite a lot of service related industries, is a bit prehistoric in its culture. So, contracts are designed to provide what the service provider wants all the time, and trick people and con people into long agreements and make it difficult to escape those things, and handcuffing clients to technology services. But times have changed. There's a real appetite from the business community to do things differently. So we kind of knew that anecdotally anyway through our own experiences, but we did quite a lot of market research and discussions and customer listening before launch. And what people want is really simple. They just want things to be robust. They want things to be flexible. And with hybrid working and the changing working habits, that stuff's even more important nowadays. So what that became is Agile Comms. We provide communications technology we're really thrilled to be working with a really wide range of businesses, mostly private sector SMEs and mostly West Country, but there's exceptions to all of that. And we provide them with phone systems, mobile contracts, internet connections, and video conferencing solutions. That's us in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. I think, you and I have known each other a little while now, and one of the things that always impresses me when I talk to both you and James is your attitude to business is very different. You referenced it earlier there about telecoms business, but it's very different, isn't it, to almost trying to tie businesses into 2 to 3 year contracts and not giving them the flexibility. So what stops your clients leaving you then, Ollie?
Yeah, it was originally a little bit of a gimmicky USP, because when you're a new business, you've got to build credibility and win clients essentially. And so short contracts, or part of it was, a bit of a USP, making us as easy as possible to buy from and win business. But it's become a bit more cultural and it's sort of instilled into everything we do now. And we'll keep custom because people want to carry on working with us. And it creates absolutely embedded degree of accountability. So if we aren't providing the service that's fit for purpose, if we're not providing the service that aligns with the customer's needs now or in the future, they can leave. So yeah, it's a question we get asked quite often. It sort of sounds quite a vulnerable thing, but we're actually finding the opposite. It creates trust, it builds relationships, And in 18 months, we've had some challenges. There are some customers that have had some tough patches in terms of technology, and because they like, trust, and acknowledge that relationship with us, it sees us through that stuff. Actually,
you talk about kind of building those relationships with your clients, and you talked about the vast array of clients that you've got. What I'm really curious about as well, because I know very recently you've embarked on a feedback crusade, haven't you, to check in with your clients, to almost I think we've had this conversation in the past where you're almost trying to offset and head off any potential issues. How do you see that kind of relationship piece and that client feedback piece in terms of propelling your growth onto the next level? How important do you see
that? It's really important. I mean, we're not going to grow if we can't keep hold of customers, and we don't keep hold of customers by tricking them into long contracts. So we've got to keep hold of customers by continuing a really good service. Our job roles are kind of split in two. So James looks after service delivery and finances of the business. I look after client acquisition, marketing, business development. So they're two quite different sets of pressures. And your traditional account management, customer service role sort of fits in between the two. So if we're doing that well, our customers are probably getting it on both barrels. And if we're doing it badly, it might be forgotten about. And that might depend on how busy the week or the month is that we're working on individually. So when Rhian and I started speaking about customer account management, customer listening, it really struck a chord. And I think for continued growth, as we become increasingly busy, it's more and more important that we're giving customers every opportunity to talk to us and provide feedback. And I think we've talked about it quite a lot, Rhian, is that I'm actually looking for the bad news. We want people to have every opportunity to not feel guilty about telling us there's a problem, to not feel like they're burdening us there's a problem, because these things can snowball and just sit there unspoken about. So the regular client surveys we're doing are giving customers an opportunity to tell us if there are any problems. We're asking regularly without having to think about it, which, as two busy people, having to remember and think about things, it's good to try and automate that stuff.
Yeah, it's a really a key part, isn't it? We often talk about processes versus people or behaviors, and that automation piece certainly does make a big difference, so that you can immediately react to stuff, and you're not waiting for that. Oh yeah, we'll give them a call later on piece. But it's from my point of view to listen to you speak here, Ollie, about it being simple and it being a logical thing to do from a business model point of view. Absolutely. And it's really refreshing not to hear a sector who traditionally is, well, this is the way it's done and we're never going to change, is moving on to something else, because we don't go to a supermarket and continue going if the service is bad or if the product is bad. However, with certain sectors, and there's quite a few of them out there, they tie you in and you have to keep eating that bad food, so to speak, until that contract is over. And I just take an example of it today, actually, with some advertising. And
there's so many sectors. Sorry.
No, go on, carry on.
There are so many sectors where the type of behaviours we see week in, week out, which you'd just be astounded. But for some reason, telecoms is one of those where it's standard practice. Yeah. And I speak to small local businesses, and I'm now walking a mile in their shoes, kind of thing. We understand what it's like to run a small business. We speak to small businesses every week who have been handcuffed into these agreements and feel victimized, or actually also quite embarrassed a lot of the time, because it's in the fine print, so they could have read the contract, but nobody does. So it's critical at every step of our client journey, even when they leave. We're not naive enough to think that we'll keep every client we win indefinitely forever. For various reasons, people will move on, and we need to make that process slick and easy as well. So yeah, but you're right. You think of you apply that prehistoric telecoms logic into other markets and other products and services. It just wouldn't fly.
That's it. Yeah.
So we had with a bit of blank piece of paper to design a startup. The ethos was kind of the easy bit to get right, really.
In terms of, I was just listening to you both. I was thinking about my own broadband contract with a very large British multinational internet provider, and it strikes me, particularly in things like, again, when you buy personal mobiles, I had to get my 11-year-old mobile thanks off to senior school next year, and I ended up going with a company who their name rhymes with a sweetie brand, and they're brilliant because they tell me every month that their contract's renewed and I don't have to stay with them at all. But actually, the service and the way they speak to me is so good. I fully intend, when my contract is up with this rather large multinational British telecoms company, to move to the sweet flavored one, because in reality, if I want to move away or the service is rubbish, I can just do that. And it's part of how we work, isn't it, Rich, as an organisation? Inside Six, we never tie people into things like mystery shopping contracts or long-term instant insight contracts. That people can leave pretty rapidly if they want to. And I think the ethos of Agile is very similar to Insight 6 in terms of how you live and die, to Rich's point, by the dog food that you eat. And you've got to eat your own dog food sometimes. And sometimes you've got to decide, actually, am I going to listen to clients and look for that opportunity feedback, which is the stuff you're looking for every week and every month, Ollie. And I think that's where we've talked about this before, that's where the gold sits. But I'm curious, if you were saying to an SME now or a startup, these are the things you have to do for your clients, this will make your business successful, what would be your top 2 tips for a startup?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, that's a first for everything.
Yeah,
we've been doing these 669 of these bloody things. The first time he's come up with a good question. So
I've only been waiting 10 minutes, so it's it's done pretty well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear.
I quite often tell people that starting a business is a bit like having a child, and I've done both. I've only done both of those things once, so I'm obviously an expert in neither. But everyone has loads of advice, and you end up ignoring it all anyway. That's one of the parallels. Is they're hard to name. I think our little business is just getting out of nappies, so we're by no means an expert. But client acquisition is something I hear a lot of businesses struggling with, and 50% of our resource as a small business is dedicated to that, i.e., my working day. And the way to attract business and sell, if you like, has modernized and changed quite a lot, in my opinion. I'm not hounding the marketplace with cold calls and advertising and marketing. I'm starting that experience of engagement with our business by listening and understanding and building trust. And I think it's quite easy for then, when I hand things over to James, he knows that I've done it in that way, and I know he'll continue to do it in that way. So we've got real trust between each other to continue the client first approach. And I think that's good. I think so. Having enough time and effort. If you're a player manager and you're starting a business on your own and you're the fee owner as well as the sales and marketing resource, that's really tough. And I see a lot of people struggle with that. So it's quite nice that we're able to split that resource very easily because there's 2 of us. But I think the client experience starts when you first meet someone or interact with them, and I think that's where you build trust quite quickly. If I was doing 100 cold calls a day and our route to market was that, it might be quite different. But we're actively putting our business out. We're in a lot of business networks. We're an active member of the local Chamber of Commerce, for example, but lots of other things. And James likes to laugh at me because I spend a lot of money on coffees and lunches and meals out and stuff. But it's all finding meaningful relationships, referral partnerships, that sort of thing, and it's all very much about trust and relationship building. So I don't know if that's not 3 things, is it? Sorry, but
no, that's brilliant though.
That great question you asked, it was a really poor answer, but never mind.
No, the answer was better than the question, to be perfectly frank. It's really refreshing just to hear about the extension of this customer journey, because that piece you're mentioning there around the idea that the first time you speak to somebody, you've already kicked off that experience with them. How did they feel about that? Did they warm to you? Did they not? Were you too in their face? Were you not? I mean, we see it all the time in networking. I talk about it a lot. You know, there's different networkers, aren't there? There's a predatory types who go there and pounce on everybody in a room. I'm going to get business from you. Well, hang on a second. You've got the wrong end of the networking stick there, haven't you? Completely. So you've really got to think about these different touch points that are occurring. And it was also interesting to hear about your part about, you know, if people leave, that is a really critical touch point that a lot of people forget about. And again, that experience I had today from an advertising point of view is they sent me an email, your contract's come to the end. Do you want to carry on? No, thank you, because they hadn't spoken to me for 6 months. That was it. They haven't asked me anything else. So how do you, if somebody says, Ollie, thanks very much, not for us, we're going to disappear, what does that process look like for you? Because I think that's a really interesting one for our listeners, because a lot of the time people just go, well, they've left, haven't they? So that's it. How do you view that point? What is it that you...
Well, we've definitely not defined that process because it's happened once.
Good.
So we've had customers no longer require the service once or twice, and that might be because they've been acquired or the member of staff has left, for example. But only once the customer left as a surprise, which was actually part of the reason. It was good timing when I started speaking to Rhian about this sort of thing, because that was fresh in my mind. So I don't think we've got a defined process for that. Actually, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, the very fact that you've got there and you can see the importance of it. And I think the idea is that you know that people are thinking of leaving is probably the more important phase of that area in itself, because then you can do something about it. We often talk about it in terms of, you know, notifications on feedback systems. Is somebody not happy? We know this. So what do? We have a chat with them, make sure that things are okay. And if we can deal with it, brilliant. If we can't, we deal with it in a nice way so that they can leave with that idea of, that was great. Okay, I'm not going to use them for now. But actually, if I speak to somebody next week who says, we're seeking a telecoms partner, give Ollie a ring. We're not using him at the moment, but I had a great experience with him. You know, and it's that whole ongoing piece, isn't it? Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, a very famous leader I once used to work with many years ago in my corporate life said, we need to be a good leaving employer, and you need to be a good leaver, because, you know, that relationship that you built up over many years, of course there will have been ups and downs and conversations, and it's often the same when you reflect on your own relationships with your own clients that you've currently got, or clients you've had in the past. And I think one of the biggest underrated things, I think, you know, going along with that point around, you know, finding out where people leave, is actually having the ability to still stay in touch with clients that may no longer use your products and services, but actually, back to your point, Rich, they may well do in the future. And actually, if you stay in contact, have a coffee with them, see them at networking events, all that good stuff, it just reminds, you know, particularly for new businesses. I certainly found this when I was studying Insight 6 up down here, and I think that the other point you made, Ollie, which really resonated with me, is this referral partnership bit about, you know, making sure your clients get a really good referred partner that's going to look after them in the same way that your brand would. And I often think that's difficult, because I've had experiences in the past where I've referred other businesses to help some of my clients, and it's not worked out as I perhaps would have wanted. So, you know, getting to know your referral partners and how they look after their clients, I think, is absolutely crucial to that relationship being successful.
I guess it kind of magnifies the level of trust needed, because you know, if I love making introductions and networking, and it's really part of my day-to-day life is you know, connecting people to each other. But I have to have that trust, and I realize that people introducing me also have to have that trust in our ability. Sometimes that's first-hand experience, because they might be customers or clients, and you're also right about a client leaving. If you've met a client while you're networking and they become a customer, and then for whatever reason they need to move on from the service you provide, and that exit process isn't done well, then you're going to carry on seeing them when you're networking. You know, we all operate in quite, even though, I mean, we're spreading our wings a bit more and working with clients a little bit further afield, and that's just kind of what happens, I think, when you follow your nose through these referrals, and, you know, you end up all over the place. But still, the core of our business is in the West Country. It's quite a small place. It's a bit of a village, isn't it?
It is. And we all like cider, which is,
Well, exactly. And you get it wrong and the cider is not involved, then you're in right bold trouble, isn't it?
often cider can aid the relationship. Ollie, that's been absolutely brilliant. I think you've shared some really inspirational stuff there in terms of how you grow your business, how you view your client relationships, how you make those client relationships in the first place. And I think your business should be an inspiration to many, because what you and James are doing at Agile is groundbreaking. It often doesn't sound groundbreaking, but it is, and you mustn't underestimate that. He always likes the last word, so go on, Rich. What do you want to say?
No, I was just going to say, Ryan, stop talking. We got to wrap up. You got to let Ollie get off and go back to the business. He's got work to do.
So we did a charity fundraiser run, which Insight 6 sponsored last year, and it was the Two Moors Way, and it started in Linton. And the day before, we were camping at a farm just outside Linton, and we realised they brewed their own cider. So you said you were going to ask me for a cider recommendation. I don't want you to forget, because I've been spending the whole time thinking about what I'm going to say. And they brew their own cider. It was the most amazing campsite. And I was about to wake up and run 136 miles, but I couldn't resist. So we all got pretty trolleyed around the campfire on their home brew. It was brilliant. So if you're ever up in North Devon, it's worth going there. Well, and Insight 6 are sponsoring this year as well.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be doing the 25 miler this year. So I really do need to get my trails. Rich does quite a bit of running. He's running for some charity, aren't you, Rich? What are you running for? Get your plug in.
Yeah, we're doing a stroke association run, and beginning of July, 50-kilometer over to Avebury to the Stones. Run to the Stones.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be good.
So should be good. Look, we're all a fit bunch here, aren't we? Ah, blimey. It's ridiculous. Means you can drink more cider. Let's go. Let's leave now.
Before we close, Ollie, how can people find you, find your services if they're interested in what they've heard?
You can Google Agile Comms. We should come up. And we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. LinkedIn's probably our main shop front, really. So get in touch.
And when we edit this video, I will put in your some contact details below. So miraculously, that would have just appeared below you on the screen. Yeah, exactly. So, great.
Yeah, Rich will edit this and make sure that it looks professional. That's his thing.
Well, take us two out.
Put your work cut out.
Right, let's go. That's the end of that episode. Thank you ever so much, Ollie.
Cheers.
Thanks,
for
Ollie.
that. And we will see, you will hear us again next month on the CX Podcast R&R. Goodbye for now.